It's so nice to see you.
So good to see you too. All right. Well, my name is Cami, and I am the sanctuary manager here at Rancho Compasion. We're a 501c3 nonprofit sanctuary located in Marin County. And we've got lots of roosters here. They have a lot to say. So we're going to get to meet some of our rescued residents today, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And so let me flip around so you guys get to see the actual good stuff, not just me. All right. So we're here in our barn. We have about 8 chickens as sort of the infirmary for the chickens that need special medical attention, or really just for any of the chickens that did live in our aviary but don't necessarily get along with some of the others. And this is Snowball. Snowball likes to check out all the action. She likes to peck you for chin scratches. So we'll just give her a few of those so she doesn't go pecking at me. She's very demanding. She is actually kind of at the top of the pecking order. She calls the shots around here. All the guys love her. And she really bosses around her human caregivers as well. If you kind of squat down and stay still for a while, she'll come right up to you and let you know that you're not doing enough to please her. And so you do have to give her a couple of chin scratches here and there. Here we have Griselda and Shakespeare. Shakespeare was living in our aviary. Our aviary is on the other side of the property, and we'll get to see it a little bit later. And he didn't really get along with our other roosters, and they attacked him. So he's living here now, but it's actually surprisingly working out well. This is a rooster. That's Robbie and that's Davy. They're both roosters, and then Gordito here. And most people would not advise to mix this many roosters with so few hens. We have 4 hens here, and usually a rooster needs about 10 hens in order to feel like he's got things under control, and he doesn't. Yes, there she goes pecking at me. Otherwise, they'll start fighting and competing over girls. But there's something about the roosters here at in our little barn flock where they all get along. They know that they don't have to compete for resources, and so they all get along despite the fact that we only have 4 female chickens here. So I love roosters. This is one of my favorites. Gordito. He can really only walk on one leg. He was hatched in a classroom for a science project. And as we all know, we can learn about the embryonic stages through online learning. We don't have to actually go and buy little baby chickens or hatch the eggs, because oftentimes what happens to these chickens that are raised in classrooms is, first of all, where are they going to go? There's not really contingency plans set out for these chickens. Maybe if you have a couple of students that can take them in their backyard, then they might take the hens. But the roosters oftentimes will not find a home, and that's because most municipalities or districts don't allow roosters to live within the area because of, I guess, certain noise ordinances. And so especially right now with this whole backyard chicken raising trend with the pandemic and everything, we are seeing an epidemic of roosters needing homes. And they are just incredible. They are so chivalrous for their ladies. First of all, they pretty much live to serve the girls. If you drop a piece of food on the ground, the guys will run over, make a big fuss, tell all the ladies that there's food here, and they'll peck at it, or they'll sort of demonstrate to all of the the girls that there's a piece of food on the ground, they'll make a big fuss and they won't eat the food until their girls have had their fill, and then they'll start to eat a little bit of it. But they're very, very sweet. They're also great protectors for your flock, and they're very loud. They like to sing, which a lot of people don't really appreciate, but I think it's such a beautiful sound, and every rooster has their own unique crow. They really all sound different. And Gordito is such a sweet little lap. He's kind of like a lap cat. If you're a cat person, you might really like chickens, even though they kind of poop everywhere. If I start to sit down or even just stand in one place for a while, he will hop over on his one leg and come and sit on your feet or try to get into your lap. He just loves cuddling. And he's pretty handsome, if I do say so myself. So just getting a look, this is our barn, and everyone goes to bed at night, so we keep everyone safe. We have over 100 residents total. A huge number of that is actually just our chickens and our other birds. But we do have other large animals, including pigs, like Argon here. And we're situated on about 10 acres. And we have a large pond for our ducks and our geese. And let's see, we just moved these geese over, just built this big kennel yesterday. So these geese were actually recently rescued in August from this neglect case in Fresno. This guy had a bunch of animals on his property, and once the pandemic hit, he fled to Mexico, leaving behind all these animals to starve. And so Animal Place, which is a wonderful sanctuary and advocacy network based in Grass Valley, they helped to coordinate the rescue of all of these animals. And we took home 4 geese and 4 little chicks. And we also took a sheep. Her name is Goldie, and we'll get to meet her later. So we have 6 geese total, and I believe 8 ducks. These are 2 of them, Moby and Daisy. They are Muscovy Ducks, which are in the food industry. They are bred for meat, sometimes eggs, and they are very large. They're large ducks. Something that's unique about Muscovies is they did not originate from Asia, or they weren't domesticated from Asia or Europe. They actually were domesticated from a South American duck, a type of wood duck that's very different from your sort of standard mallard type duck. They're almost goose-like in their appearance. They have these kind of sharp talons. They have a pointed beak, and they've got these really gnarly looking faces that make them look a little bit like Darth Maul. And when he's getting in his guard dog mode or his sort of sheriff mode, he actually raises his mohawk. He's got a mohawk on the top of his head, and it's very pronounced. He wags his tail a lot, and he has a very unique voice. So Muscovies don't love to swim, even though we have this big pond. They kind of prefer to stay on land. And actually their ancestors are tree dwellers. They kind of perch in trees and make their nests in trees, as opposed to a mallard duck that might prefer to live on the water and in the reeds. Okay, so we have 8 goats, and this is Cookies here. He is by his own choice in this very small little house. This is actually one of our potbelly pigs' houses. Actually, there she is over there walking towards us, Princess. She gets a pink princess palace, and Cookies loves to hang out in here. I like to compare goats to cats. They kind of follow that mantra, if I fits, I sits. They really will try to squeeze into any little room or opening that they can. They are just so curious. It's just like cats. If you put something down, like for example, yesterday, as we were setting up this kennel, we had to bring in all of these large fence pieces, and the goats just kept on climbing all over them and just wanted to go all underneath them. And so really they're a lot like cats. As far as their social patterns, they're also kind of like dogs. They just really like to follow you around. They prefer to be right by your side. In fact, goats will often walk right up next to you and press their bodies up against you. They just really want to be all in your space. They have no boundaries, but that's okay with me. So Cookies has a wife, Cream, and this is Cream. Yes, you're looking very regal with your hoof hanging off there. So Cream and Cookies are La Mancha hybrids. So you might see something that's kind of strange about them. They have little tiny elf ears. And it's a breed that originated or was purposely created in the 40s or something like that by this woman who was showing them off for breeding competitions and whatnot. And she started breeding this recessive gene for little tiny ears. And just for the aesthetics of it, it's not the best thing for goats. They can produce too much earwax, and for some, it can cause ear infections. Luckily, we haven't had that issue. And overall, we just love having these goats. They're very sweet, very social. Cream right here, when she first came to us, we actually don't really know their background. We think that they got in a car accident and were found on the roadside, maybe picked up by animal control. But she was very standoffish. She really didn't like people to touch her very much. There was really only a few spots you could really touch her without her getting defensive and headbutting you. And I mean, when you get headbutted with these horns, it can leave many bruises. And so it would be quite unpredictable. If you lowered your head around her, she wouldn't think that you were initiating a challenge. Or if you kind of snuck up against her too fast, she would startle. So it was very difficult when she first came here. But after a few months, she started developing an abscess. And so she needed medical attention to drain that abscess. And so after we gave her the treatment she needed, she really turned around. It was a complete 180. She started coming up to us in gratitude almost. It was like she began to trust us. She realized that we were here to help her. And we told her that throughout the entire process. It was like, we care about you so much. We don't want you to be in pain. And we really think she understood that, because she started coming up to us, actively seeking out attention, wanting pets, all of that. And now she just will stare lovingly into your eyes, will hold very intense eye contact to let you know that she's caring for you and she wants some love. And she is just the sweetest mama goat. She did come with a baby, actually. Cookies and Cream did have a baby newbie, but she unexpectedly died about 1.5 years ago. So Mama Cream was a little lonely for a bit, but we did adopt 4 little baby goats about 1.5 years ago. And ever since then, Mama Cream sort of is their surrogate mom. She kind of is the nanny. She looks after them and calls for them very loudly if they're not nearby. And so these 4 kid goats are very lucky. And here's one of them. This is Leroy. Leroy and his best friend Madeline were rescued and fostered brought to health by this young rescuer who runs a rescue called Genevieve's Gentle Heart Rescue, I believe is the name. And her name's Kira. And Leroy was just a little baby when he was found in one of those weed abatement herds that you see off of hiking trails and on the side of roads. They're often resourced to, help eat weeds and prevent fires and things like that. But oftentimes these herds aren't well cared for. They're in very dangerous situations where maybe the fencing isn't good, so they can easily get taken by predators. Maybe the whoever the herder is or the manager doesn't really have a care for the individuals. And so in his case, one of the moms was pregnant and gave birth to little Leroy. And for reasons unknown to us, he was rejected by his mother and kind of left all alone after the herd had gone off to some other part of the infenced area. And this hiker went by and she saw that this little baby goat was all abandoned. And so she asked the herder if she could take him, if she could rescue him, bring him back to health. And I guess the guy said, sure, there's nothing we can really do for him. He's just going to be left to die anyway. And so she was brought to Genevieve's Gentle Heart Rescue and raised back to health, nursed back to health. He was just on the brink of death. And he made a best friend along the way, Madeline. We'll see if we can find her. She's usually around here, but I don't see her right now. But Leroy is just a happy and feisty little goat. He really is feisty. He will kind of gang up on people sometimes. But here we have Sugar and Spice. They're also one of the 4 kids that we brought in around the same time. We don't know their background. They were found wandering along some railroad tracks in, I want to say, Merced County, picked up by animal control, and we adopted them. And Sugar, we think, might have been dehorned. It's a practice in the food industry where there's many ways of dehorning or debudding a goat or a cow or any horned animal, but it usually involves a hot iron to the head right kind of before their horns start growing in. So she's got like the tiniest little bitty bit of horn, but other than that, she should have her horns in just like her sister here. But we think maybe they escaped right during that process. We don't know. I'm not sure why Spice has her horns and Sugar doesn't. But they, despite their names, they're both very, very sweet. Spice is not at all spicy or feisty. She just has horns, and I think that was one way of giving them a little designation when we first brought them here. But Sugar does have her ears, they curl up like that, so that's one way of distinguishing her from the others. Oh, there's Reggie. And let's see, we have our sheep lying down here. We have 4 sheep in total. And as I said earlier, we did take in a sheep from that animal neglect case down in Fresno, and that's that one right at the end there. Oh, if you can see my shadow, Reggie has just popped in to say hi. So this is Reg. He's our boyfriend goat, as we affectionately call him, because he's just so sweet, so loving. He likes to come up to you, blow you little kisses, and just wants to always be by your side. And this is what I mean when they press their bodies into you. He just kind of knocked me over, but they really just want to be literally glued to your hip, and it's just the best thing ever. And we have June over here. So June was found in this hoarding situation. She was in a really small sort of dog run. It was all dirt, no grass, and her only neighbor was a goat named Benny. And so Benny and June came to live with us. They were probably the 3rd or 4th resident pair that we brought to the sanctuary when we started about 5.5 years ago. And she was just traumatized, didn't want to connect at all with anyone else. She was very curious to meet all the other animals, but really was just so timid of humans. And on top of that, she is a Barbados sheep, which is a self-shedding sheep breed, basically you don't have to shear them for their wool. Their wool just comes off naturally. In her case, she had just this huge, thick blanket of matted wool on her back that it was sort of like her security blanket. You know, she really hadn't spent, she hadn't been able to take that wool off of her. And most Barbados sheep, what they'll do is they'll kind of bite at their wool coat when they're ready to shed, or they'll rub it off on the fence post. You know, they'll find a way to get it off of them. She had never really done any of that. And so she had this huge, thick security blanket of densely matted wool, and she was just shocked and traumatized. But when she first came here, she saw, you know, the big rolling hills, and it was all green and grassy at the time. And she really sort of started to open up. But, you know, she was still at the bottom of the totem pole, just like chickens or any animal. They all have their own pecking order. So she and Benny the goat were way at the bottom. They kind of would you know, be the last to eat or get pushed around a little bit. And Benny would always protect her. She was the only sheep at the time. We didn't have any other sheep. And after he actually died a few years ago, back in 2017, he unexpectedly was found with cancer and he had to be put down. And so she was very lonely. But about 4 months later, we found Cinnamon, who is another Barbados sheep. She's right there. Cinnamon was found in Sonoma County, wandering again around the road, picked up by animal control, brought to a shelter where we adopted her and brought her here to the sanctuary. And it was just amazing seeing June meet another sheep for the first time. She was like, she kind of would paw her feet at the ground, like to challenge her, like, are you serious? Like, what is this? What is this little tiny lamb that looks just like me doing here? But, and at first she wanted nothing to do with Cinnamon, but then she started to open up and invite Cinnamon into her life. And then they started to kind of create their own little herd. And June really opened up and she transformed into this, she budded into a leader. All of the sheep follow her. And subsequently, that dense, thick security blanket of wool came off of her. She started realizing she didn't need it anymore. And so she shed all of that trauma, that years of sadness and pain. And she really has blossomed into the leader of her own sheep herd. She's very smart. She knows, she comes when she's called. Everyone here knows their names, but she really just takes the lead. And it's amazing to see how all of the sheep trust her and how June trusts the humans that care for her, even though they have really no interest in interacting with us. You know, they're not very affectionate compared to goats. So we just kind of let them do their own thing and try not to get in their space. All right. I'm just going to check the time. So do we want to jump into a Q&A? It's 11:30 or so. I can keep showing you guys around.
We do have one question from Mike. He asked if Barbados sheep are actually from the island of Barbados.
Yes, I believe they are. I'm pretty sure they were brought over from the settler colonialists during, you know, whenever the islands were colonized. And then there's a few different like cross breeds, but yeah, they are from Barbados. A lot of times with domesticated animals or farmed animals, their name will sort of reflect where they're from, but not always. I don't know where a lot of the names come from. And I mean, frankly, to us as a sanctuary, we're not interested in breeding, and we're really trying to encourage folks to see why breeding of all sorts is so detrimental and why we need to put an end to it. And this is Louie and Angel, our two cows. Yeah.
Oh, they look so happy.
They are very happy. Yeah, they just kind of spend a lot of their day laying on the opposite side of the pond over here, just hanging out, chewing their cud, enjoying the sun. It's a beautiful autumn day here. And Louie and Angel both have very different stories. So Louie was raised by a high schooler in Future Farmers of America. It's a program for students to learn about agriculture and raising animals for food production. And what happens is once they get to market size, which is usually only less than a year old, really, they go to the county fair and they show them off, and then they sell them at auction, and then they can bring them home and eat them up, which was so traumatizing of a thought for this high school girl who completely fell in love with Louie. He's just a big teddy bear. She raised him by hand, invested thousands of dollars in his care. And when she was standing there at the county fair, she realized she couldn't go through with it. So she actually fibbed and said that he had been given an antibiotic that would have disqualified him from the day's proceedings. And so she was able to get out of that one. And she now needed to find a home for him. Somehow they found us, and we said, yes, we will definitely take him, because at that point, one of our other cows, we only had 2, but the other one had just died very tragically. So little Angel was all alone, very, very sad, and needed a best friend. And so we brought him home, actually on the same day that we brought Cinnamon home. And he's just a very, very happy grass puppy. Yes, he is. Everyone's following. You can see all the goats coming along for the tour.
Are you all open for visiting times during the pandemic? Do you have limited visiting times, or are you still closed?
We are kind of in beta testing mode. And so we will, if you will, we are going to open up to a few visitation sessions. So if you or your friends or family would like to come and visit us, you can get in contact with me at info@ranchocompasion.org. And we will look into getting you scheduled for an in-person visit. We are keeping them under 6 people to be as safe as possible, and just to see how all of the residents do with having people back. I'm sure they're going to love it, but it can be a little overwhelming sometimes as if lots of people show up at once. So yes, definitely get in touch if you want to meet some of these furry and feathered friends. I'm sure the goats would love to rub themselves on you and receive all the love and cuddles. And the pigs would love their belly rubs. They're really missing out on those. So yes, get in touch with us. We also are still doing virtual tours if in-person is not an option for you at this time, but you still want to get a little more in-depth with everyone. And what else? You can also volunteer with us. We are always looking for volunteers for special projects, and for anyone who wants to commit to doing a more regular volunteering schedule. So definitely reach out to us about those. And if you want to learn more about us, you can follow our journey on Instagram and Facebook at Rancho Compasion. That's ranch with an O at the end and compassion with 1 S. And our website is ranchocompasion.org.
And that's also where folks can make donations to help out Rancho. And we also have that link on our festival website at sfworldvegfest.org on the vendors page. We do have another question for you, Cammie. Which one came first, Miyoko's Creamery or Rancho Compasion?
The creamery came first, and then we moved out here as a family. I'm Miyoko's daughter, for all of you who know about Miyoko and her company and don't know who I am. So yes, she wanted to move out to the country, and we bought this property with lots of land and a barn, and the idea to rescue animals had always been in the back of her mind, but then it became a reality as soon as we adopted Rufus and Reggie. And then of course all these chickens started coming and everyone else started filling up those spots, and yeah, we're a full-fledged sanctuary now. We were only volunteer based for a while. My mom was really doing all of the animal care, and we just started hiring last year, our first full-time caregiver, and then they hired me, and we're still mostly volunteer run. Okay, sorry, there's something going on with my little gimbal. Yeah, but your donations always help. Take care, everyone.